Hello, everybody. Hello. Today, I would like to welcome a very, very special guest. Someone who wanted to be a wizard at one time, a mentor of creatives, if you will, the co-pilot of your success. Publishin Pete Simeti, welcome to the SKITS Fun House! Woo!
I thought we had someone else on for a second. I'm like, who? Oh, we got an interesting guest on here. Oh, it's just me. I'm sorry to disappoint anyone, but it's just me.
Hey, man. How are you doing today? And I know we've said that before the show. How's it going? But, you know, for the people out there, how is it going for Publishin Pete, for Alterna Comics? What's going on, man?
It's going great. We've got so much going on right now. I mean, I can't even keep track of all of it half the time. There's so much going on, but it's a lot of good stuff. So that's the important part.
Well, I mean, hey, you got a campaign, you know, things are going, you got your glasses on, everything's fantastic. You know, I mean, we're burning the midnight oil. I mean, that's just how it is when you're running a campaign. And I got to say, man, I'm a huge fan of Alterna, and I know a lot of other people out there who watch us are. I mean, it is, in my mind, this is what a comic publishing company should be like. I was listening to you the other day on Kyle Shannon's broadcast. Was that last night, or was that?
Kelsey's show. Yeah,
Kelsey's. And did I say Kyle? I meant Kelsey.
I think you did.
Bad. Oh my gosh, man, I'm terrible with words sometimes. But I was listening to what you were saying about how being a publisher, you're like a mentor to people. You know, you help out people, and people at our age, you know, starting to get into the 30s, 40s, they've had a couple jobs, you know, you've been around the bush a little bit, as it were. You know that you actually, when you're working in an environment, you can't just take everything and put it on your shoulders and walk down the road. You know, when you're actually working at a company, you know, you got to do your part, or you got to help other people do their part. So tell me, I want you to kind of tell me a little bit more about that. Like, go through your day. How is it that you're helping people actually create the books that they want to create? Because people don't realize this. It takes more than just one person, people.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people, when they first come to Alterna, there's a lot of different things that they're aware of in the industry, or even just how to create a comic, but there's also a lot of things they're just not aware of. And I don't think they necessarily maybe either have someone to bounce things off of, or someone who's knowledgeable about how to actually say why this thing looks good, why this thing looks bad, how you can improve it, that kind of a thing, and actually put those into words that then make sense to them. So a lot of the times when we get new people coming in, which a lot of the creators at Alterna are, but nowadays not so much, but in the past they definitely were, you know, they have to brush up on obviously a lot of different basics in the industry, a lot of different terminologies. I'll still have submissions nowadays that come in where people don't necessarily know what line weight means with inks, or what CMYK means and why things go to print and it's CMYK, and your files should be that way because they'll reproduce more accurately to what you see on your screen, as opposed to RGB, which is, you can't reproduce the same colors when it goes to print. So it's all these little things that are like that. But I'm kind of here to just help out with these creators. That a lot of the times when we get submissions, maybe there's a little bit of something and they don't see it. Maybe it's lettering or inking or, a different kind of writing style in terms of, giving a voice, letting creators sometimes know, your characters are all sounding the same. Don't have this monotonous kind of, every single character sounds like it's the same voice. Give your characters a voice, give them different personalities, make sure you play up those traits. So it's not so much about making sure that they're creating a book the way I want it to be, but more about saying, hey, have you ever thought about amplifying this or toning that down or tweaking this or tweaking that, little suggestions here and there, and then they can come back and revise it. So it's more about saying, hey, why don't you just give it your voice in this kind of a direction, kind of send them along and guide them. And then hopefully they do it. And if they don't, that's fine too. So it's all these different things. And then obviously when they're at Alterna, there's a lot of things like file prep. There's a lot of things like getting a book together. There's a lot of graphic design that goes on here. So for those that don't know, I take care of all the graphic design on the books. So the cover layouts, things like that. I've designed about maybe 75% of the logos that are on the books.
Nice.
Different things like maintaining the website or shipping orders out. I do all of that too. So all these kinds of things I take care of, and those are my responsibilities mostly for making sure Alterna has some kind of a path that we're staying down. But being there for creators and being someone that they're able to actually trust and say, hey, what about this idea? What about this character, this direction I'd like to go in it? What do you think, Pete? Does that work? And not have to go. And this happens so often in the industry, I think, where people feel reserved about sharing those ideas with someone else, especially maybe a publisher, because they think, even if I'm still working for the publisher, they're still kind of like the enemy. You don't want to give too many ideas because then maybe they'll kick me out and then they'll give the idea to someone else or whatever, or steal it for themselves. But I've at this point with a lot of creators, I have the reputation of always being someone I'm not going to be there and take the credit for the different ideas that I help them come up with, or sometimes that I'll just give them. I want to see a book that's great. I as a publisher, I've become more of a fan, I guess, in a way, than a creator, because I also want to see the book be the best book that it could be. So it's fun to create with these different people, and I've had the honor and privilege to create with hundreds over the years. So it's been awesome just being someone that loves comics. But that's, I think, my position more is to be helpful.
Yeah, people don't really normally realize just how many people, just like you're saying, there's several steps. You're the creative, you think you have everything in your mind, you see it exactly how you want to see it, and you got it, perfect. But there are people that help you, and people ask me, they're like, well, you're the creator, the writer, the illustrator, the colorist, all that. And I'm like, well, listen, I got an editor. You got to have an editor. I mean, especially for someone like me, I can't spell anything. You got to have someone who goes over it, but you also got to have someone who reads that story and says, hey, I know what you're trying to do, but it ain't coming across that way. Here's what you need to do. And then once you pass it past the editor, then you have someone above them who might be the creative director that says, hey, here's who we're trying to sell it to. It might not be quite what you want it to be at this point. It's like, if we tweak it a little bit here, it might go a little bit better with who we're trying to market this stuff to. And I definitely noticed that with Alterna books, that it does have a feel to most of the books. I haven't read too many of them. I got the probably about, was it 10 months ago, we got the number ones, the whole box of number ones.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was like 30 books or something like that. It was fantastic, and if anyone out there wants to get started with Alterna, I know we're going to get into a campaign here in a minute, but I mean, for me, that was like a big eye opener. It was like a whole box of number ones. So it's like, we went through it, and my wife was like, hey, I like this book, this book, this book, and this book. Maybe we should order some more of those. I was like, okay, let's go ahead and get on that here soon. But for me, that's like a huge thing. It's like, hey, you got that starting point, everything's rolling in there and stuff like that. But Anyway, I think where I was trying to go with this was having someone above you to actually say, hey, these are the things that you should probably look at is a huge deal, and I've been a product developer for years, and I remember I've had people come to me like, hey, we got this new big product we're going to be doing, and it's awesome. And I'm like, okay, what is it? They're like, well, it's just going to be cool and it's going to be here, but we can't really quite tell you because we don't want you to steal the idea. And I'm like, well, how can I help you develop your product? I'm a product developer. If you don't tell me what the product is, come on, buddy. So, I mean, it just goes right into that whole thing. I'm not going to steal your product. That's why I'm here. That you got my name from someone who you trust to do this for you. Let's work on this together here, buddy. And a lot of times you can't even sell books to companies if you don't tell them what the book is about, I mean, so you got to have some push and pull, some give and take and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely. And I find that's probably one of the best parts of creating is to be able to actually collaborate with people. But the communication, because I've also been on creative teams too, even making my own things where who you're working with, they just go ahead and they just willy-nilly make whatever change they want. And it just feels like, wait, I wish you would have told me.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things at play where that kind of communication, as long as you're kind of saying, hey, what do you think about this? I want to put it in, go down this direction or whatever, as opposed to just saying, you know what, I'm just going to take over the whole thing and then I'll show it to you and you'll probably like it. And if you don't, well, that's kind of too bad. That's not really how you collaborate with people. So I have had those experiences too. But I love being able to create comics and make comics. It's just, it's something that I've loved my whole life. It's something that I think I've always wanted to do. I don't know what else I would do with my life at this point. So it's been great. And to see the readers also respond in such a way where you feel like, oh, the Alterna books, they all feel like they're kind of, the same, like this feels like an Alterna book. Even though they're all different universes, they're all different creators, they're all, but there's something that makes them feel like there's a unifying kind of feel behind all of them. And I don't know, maybe that's something that has to do with me. Maybe that's something of how I'm picking books or helping to design the covers or whatever, or the feel of the book. Maybe it's that, but I'm always drawn towards books anyway that feel more timeless and more classic. So I don't really like to go for books that feel like they're trendy or they feel topical or they feel like, well, in a month or two, will anyone really like this book or be able to even enjoy it? I want 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, someone can read an Alterna book and go, oh, I really like this. This is something that appeals to me. It's funny because my book, The Chair, that came out in 2008, when it was re-released as single issues in 2017, a lot of people found it for the first time and they thought, oh, this is a brand new book, but it's because of the fact that there was nothing that dated the book necessarily. It was a very universal kind of approach to storytelling with different themes and things like that, but nothing in terms of, modern kinds of politics or language that was, just towards that time period or whatever. So it's that kind of a thing. And that's the kind of books that I like to publish. And that's the stuff that I look for. I look for creators that they're not looking to create a formula to tell their story. They want to tell this story. This is a story that, for most people in comics, you have a bunch of stories that you want to tell. You have a lot of things that throughout your life, you're like, hey, if I get the chance, this is the story I want to tell. Well, that's the kind of story that I want to publish. Yeah.
Well, speaking about comics and Alterna and creating and actually being the shepherd of all these books that you have actually at Alterna Comics, let's just go ahead and take a look at the campaign right quick. Can you just tell me a quick little something, or would you want me to play the video first?
I could talk about the campaign. We could play the video too. It's up to you. But yeah, I could talk about it for a little bit and then we could circle back.
All right. Yeah, go ahead and tell us a little bit about it since we're on that kick.
Sure. So everything on this campaign is because our readers have demanded it over the years. And we usually would put out an Alternaween campaign around this time of year, like August or so. It would have been Alternaween 3, which would have had our comics being used as trick-or-treat things for Halloween. But instead, because of the way the world is right now, we've got this campaign going on. And usually when we run a campaign, it's an event. And we'll have something new, a couple different things. This way, the readers can get in on maybe a new hat or a shirt or a blank variant or whatever it is. But instead, this campaign is every single thing that would have been like that. So it's all this stuff that the readers have asked for probably the past 2-3 years. And it's blank variants, it's sketch cards, it's sketch covers, it's art commissions, it's hoodies, it's a new T-shirt, hats, beanies, that kind of a thing. But also a lot of the comics that we have that have been selling out, they're going back to print with this campaign. So we've got a collector case, and the collector case actually has sleeves that you can insert art. So we've got a lot of pieces of art, prints basically, that you can have for the front of your collector case. You can fully customize it. We've got side pockets on the collector case too. So we printed those things, and you could actually use those and customize the case like that also. But on top of that, if you were to get something like the fully loaded collector case perk, which is our featured perk at $99, you now get, because we've unlocked so many issues, you get 29 comics, 18 blank variants, all the collector case inserts, and the collector case. So you're getting a whole lot of value for that. And even if you don't want to go that deep with it and spend $99, let's say, if that's out of your price range, you could still get the reprint bundle and get $30. For $30, you get 29 comics, and you could potentially get 30 comics or more, because we have more still to unlock. And if we reach 25,000 on the campaign before it closes in 8 days, we extend the campaign another 30 days. So we'll unlock even more issues. So if you have certain perks, you're going to probably not even realize how many comics you're getting. You're going to open the package up and see like 40 comics or something and think, what on earth did I back? Holy, this is insane.
That's how we were when we got the box of number ones. We were like, oh my God, what is this? It was like a stack of comics like this high. We were like, what's this? What's this, like $25? And we got like a pile of comics. I was like,
yeah,
crazy.
Most people now, they pay like $30 for comics, and they get, I don't know, maybe 6 comics or something like that, you know? So for people to see 20, or in the case of this campaign, 30 or more comics is what they're going to receive. I think they're going to be really happy with it. And that includes also the fact that they're getting a lot of different bonuses. We've got like magnets and pins and stickers and things like that coming to them as well, including also a super secret surprise that I'm not going to say in the course of this campaign. Maybe I should say it, but I like the idea of giving them a gift when they open the box and they see, oh, wow, I didn't know I was going to get this thing. This is kind of fun, you know? So we always do that with our campaigns too. So anyone that's familiar with backing Alterna knows that they always get some extra fun stuff included.
Yeah. I mean, that's just awesome. I wanted to circle back to this collector's case for a second, because I don't think people realize just how special these collector's cases are. Because as a comic book fan, I buy comics all the time, and I got to tell you, they end up in piles here, piles there. They're falling on the floor. I'm stepping on them. I mean, I do all sorts of mess with them. Now, these collector's cases, man, you can put your comics right inside, correct?
Yeah, it'll fit, like, depending on the thickness of the comic and if you bag and board them, it'll fit 15 to 18 comics.
Dude, I mean, how awesome is that? Then you can put it right on your shelf next to your graphic novels, your books, and all that, and they won't slide and fall off. I mean, this right here is perfect. This makes everything worthwhile. I mean, for me, there's a few different people doing the collector's cases right now. For me, this is like the coolest thing out there, because it's a way to take your floppies and plop them up on the shelf and give them provenance right next to your graphic novels, your regular books, and everything else without getting hurt or falling all over the place. So this right here is it's worth its weight in gold, as they say.
Yeah, and you can have, of course, storage boxes and things like that for your comics, but it's different because you can display these and they look great. They have, for instance, here's an example of one. So this features artwork from my comic, The Chair. So here's the front pocket collector case, and here's the side pockets. And when you put the case on the shelf, it'll just be there, sitting there like that. Now, if you have a whole bunch, because we're selling a ton of them too, and we even have a 10-pack that you could get. If you have a 10-pack of these that have all your Alterna or whatever you want to put in these on the shelf, that's going to look great. That's awesome. We've also got, with that 10-pack too, the Alterna logo. You can get it across. So you have these special collector case inserts that you can only get with that tier, and it forms the Alterna logo kind of bursting through. So if you're an Alterna super fan, which I know many people are at this point, God bless them. I know that many are getting that as well. The 10 box set that we have, and that's going to look great. I know 3 people in particular that do live streaming that are getting them, and they're like, I want to put this in the back, so it's a nice display when I stream. And just stuff like that is what I love so much about making comics. Is the readers get excited about stuff that gets me excited about stuff. It inspires me to keep on making more things. It inspires the creators here. So it's wonderful to be able to do this stuff. And again, it's because the readers demanded these things. And I'm so glad that they did, but I'm also glad that they came through, because how embarrassing would that be to say Alterna Comics because you demanded it, and we have like 20 people that have backed the campaign. That would just be like, oh man, we got to change that right away. So I'm glad that people are actually going forward and have supported, and they've supported in a really big way, because historically for Alterna now, especially in our modern era of what I would consider 2017 and on, which is when we started publishing the newsprint single issues, this has been by far our best campaign. So again, it's because of the fact that we're giving the readers what they wanted, which is what a concept.
Also, you got that thing churning. I mean, how many campaigns have you done? You know, each campaign, that's the thing that I try and tell people. They're like, oh, you know, how am I going to do this? How am I going to succeed? It's like, well, you do your first one. You get out there, you try your best to promote and do whatever. And then you launch your first one. And then, you know, just see how it goes. Hopefully you get funded. Then you move on to your next one and you start building on top of that, you know. And that's one thing that people need to understand. It's like, you're not Ethan. You're not going to make $1 million on your first campaign. He's been in the industry for 27 years.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe if you were at his level and you put in, you know, all that time beforehand and had a big fan base, and you've already, you know, made these awesome comics, then maybe that could happen. But again, though, it's the same thing too with people when they submit something to Alterna when they're a first-time creator. You know, don't necessarily feel like you have to rush into this part of the business. A lot of the times they'll even write in the submission, oh, this is the first time I've ever drawn anything. Fall in love with creating, get used to creating your comic and your story and your art and things like that before you decide I want a publisher to publish me. Because if anything, the worst thing that could happen is I just don't care about the quality, let's say, and I just want to publish anything that comes through just because. And now I say yes, and you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to make a comic. You've never really made a comic. You've just made a couple pages. And now I want, you know, this deadline here and that deadline there, and it has to look like this, and it has to be ready, and, you know, let's go. And you're like, I don't know. I've never done this before. And in that case, you know, if I'm just kind of willy-nilly accepting whatever, I usually wouldn't have the time to actually help anyone either. It'd just be like, well, that's too bad. Next, you know, let's go. Next person in line. So you want to make sure you're spending time creating your comic and giving it your all.
Yeah, people got to understand that you're a publisher and you're responsible to a lot of different people who are creating comics. You don't have that ability to just spray and pray and hope that something actually happens. You know, it's like you got to make choices that benefits everybody and possibly helps out a creator at the same time.
Yeah, and I also want to make sure that the book we're putting out, I'm passionate about it too. I'm a fan of the book as well. Every single book that we've put out over the years, I've really enjoyed. I've liked them, and I feel confident about having them at Alterna. And so if I'm not excited about it, and that's the thing, is if I'm not excited about it and I'm just kind of accepting the book just because, and I don't really believe in the book, I don't think that that's going to come through and give the reader any confidence either. And especially at this point now that people are really taking to Alterna more than ever before, I have a responsibility not just to the creators, but to the readers too, to put out something that they know when they see the Alterna logo, that means that they're going to enjoy that book. They might actually love that book. And at the end of the day, no matter what, they're not going to sit there and go, that book was just, I don't even know what they were thinking. You know, so I want people to actually, on some degree, enjoy or fall in love with these books.
Exactly. Now, let's just go ahead and play the video right quick and let people hear what you got to say, all right?
Yeah.
The readers are so demanding. They send me these emails. They want all these things. I only have so much time. I just want to sit here and read a comic book. That's the whole reason I started this company, was to just sit here and read comics all day. Yeah, these readers, they want stuff.
Let's do my best impersonation of a professional comic creator on Twitter.
It's fantastic.
Has this ever happened to you? You're trying to organize your comic books and they explode. What a mess. Well, you're in luck. The Alterna Comics collector case is here to save the day. Keep your collection organized and in great shape. Holds up to 15 comics, bagged and boarded too. And now we've got art inserts for the front and side pocket of your collector case. Customize your case with art from some of your favorite Alterna Comics titles. Available on Indiegogo.
You still here? What are you doing? Go check out the Indiegogo already.
I gotta tell you, man, Pete, that is fantastic. That brings me back to the 80s. It brings me back to movies like UHF. You know, it's like I'm expecting like Weird Al to come in afterwards or something like that. I mean, it was perfect, man. Perfect.
Yeah, we wanted to have some kind of just fun with the video. I didn't want to do, I knew I was going to talk everyone's ear off about everything anyway, all the time during the next 30 days. I'm like, I don't need to actually do a big pitch of a video. I'm going to be everywhere talking about this thing. So let's just make it kind of funny. Let's just be stupid with it and have some fun and then break the fourth wall a little bit. But yeah, people have enjoyed it, which is good. But of course, it's totally tongue-in-cheek, but obviously everyone who knows me knows that I absolutely love the readers and the creators here, and I'm not being bugged by emails of, hey, you know, we really love Alterna. Can you make this? Can you make that? So it's just that kind of a thing. It was taking a chance in case anyone was new and they might think, what is this guy's problem? But at the same time, I mean, hopefully they understood if they watched the whole thing that we were just having fun.
Hey, man, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's comic books. If you ain't having fun, probably shouldn't be in the industry. You know, that's the reason why people get into it, is to have fun. You know, and I think that's something that's really missing these days. And that's something that I really, really enjoy about Alterna Comics, is it seems like it's just all about fun. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I could have showed up in like a 3-piece suit or something, you know, and just be like very professional and say, oh, yes, Alterna, we are doing this because we like comic books and money.
Yeah, but that's not
which is an oxymoron
to sell people. Yeah, exactly. Let's not get into all of that. You know, I mean, it's like if you don't make money, you can't make comic books.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, though, is that we want to make sure that the readers are having fun, that we're having fun. If we're all not having fun and we're just very dour and miserable and I hate making comics. Why am I making comics? Anyone that's out there that's kind of like that, that's like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. You know, do something else with your life. You only have one life. It's so short. Don't spend it being miserable making something you don't want to make.
Well, speaking of which, I mean. There is that going on in the industry. We don't actually like to talk about that sort of thing, but we do know that, you know, that stuff has hit people. It's hit you, you know, the nonsense that's going on online, and you've had to struggle through a little bit of it, adversity and stuff like that. I mean, what brought you through? What made you like say, okay, I'm going to take this on my back. They're going to do what they're going to do. I'm going to hold my cross, as it were, you know, and we're just going to trudge through and we're going to keep moving. I mean, what gave you that?
I mean, first and foremost, the biggest person that's always been behind me has been my wife.
Yeah.
So absolutely her. But so if I didn't have her, I don't even know. I might not even be here today, to be perfectly honest. But other than that, it was the creators, the readers that stood by me. That just pulled me through a lot of stuff. And at this point in time, you know, looking back, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have took it as hard. It would have been for the people that left Alterna when they did. I would have just been like, okay, goodbye. You know, it's nice knowing you. And then for any of the readers that wanted to believe the insanity or the craziness or whatever that was going on, or I don't know, same kind of thing as well, because we have so many more people now that have stood by us, that understand what we've been about, that for years they know what we've been about. A lot of the people that were reading Alterna that were being attacked, they weren't new people necessarily to Alterna. They were reading our books. I knew a lot of them for 7-8 years. So it wasn't just like they just discovered. I think a lot of people thought Alterna was very new when we came out with the newsprint single issues, because it was a much bigger splash that we made.
It was huge. It was fantastic. I got to tell you, man, the newsprint is awesome.
Yeah, but Alterna was around for, years before that, 10 years before we did the newsprint. So we had a lot of other readers. So all these people that they were saying, oh, they're like this and they're that. And I'm thinking, like, I know these people. I've known them for a while. I pay attention to who my readers are. They're not these people that you say they are. How could I go against them and say that, oh yeah, you're right, they're all awful, they're this, they're that, they're everything else that you said? I know that they're not. So I didn't back down, and I stood up for them, and I think that's why they ended up standing up for me too. And I still continue to do that, and I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, and that's just the way you got to do it. I mean, also people got to realize it's like, okay, I'm doing a business, and you want me to say that all the people that support me are evil? Yeah, you can't do. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's just silliness. I mean, anyone who tries something like that, it's a non-starter. It's not a conversation. All you're trying to do is just make people say, "Hey, look at me," and that's just the way everyone should take it. Everyone out there who's listening to this right now, the internet is not real. That's like the best way.
Tiny sliver to what actually everything is, and that's
the way you got to look at the internet. It's not real. Everything's going to be okay. Turn it off and go outside and enjoy yourself, because the more you turn it off, the more you realize whatever's going on there is not going on in real life. You just turn it off and you enjoy your wife, you enjoy your kids, you enjoy your family. Go have lunch with your family if you can, if you're not locked down or something right now. But I mean, just go out there and enjoy life. And the more you do that, the more you'll realize creating comics, reading comics is really exciting and a lot of fun. Just don't pay attention to it. That would be the only piece of advice I would give you. There you go, Black Star Wife's rule.
Any kind of supportive anyone in your life, whether it's a spouse, a friend, whoever, a family member, God bless them, because seriously, we go through so many different things in life, and without those people, Lord knows where we'd all be. So it's really tough to say that, looking back on many different things in my life, I don't know if I'd handle certain things differently. But looking back, especially at what had occurred and seeing how things played out, I definitely wouldn't have been as upset, I think, about many different things as I would have been knowing what I know now. But that's just life. I think we feel that way a lot. And now I'll still get a lot of stuff towards me every now and then, and then I just laugh it off.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, it's like, you gotta laugh at it.
And anyone else that goes through anything similar to what I went through, or a lot of other people have gone through as well, seriously, know that you've got a lot of people behind you, a lot of people that support you and care about you, whether it's me or someone else, or hopefully people close to you in your actual life. And don't ever think that the weird hate that comes your way, or the negativity or whatever, that's indicative of the whole of how everyone must feel about you. It's not. And usually, honestly, I found that the biggest reason they'll come after you is because they're threatened by you. They don't like that you're succeeding. They don't like that you're doing something that they can't do, or they wish they could do. Yeah. So take some pride in that too, and go, you know what? I must be actually doing something right. If this many people are coming at me for no reason at all, I don't bother anyone. I just do my thing, and then they're still coming at me. So keep doing your thing.
Yeah, you get the most flack when you're closest to the target. That's the only thing you got to remember. So if you're getting a lot of flack, you're probably doing something good, because a lot of people are mad that you're actually doing something good. So that's the way. But speaking of fans, speaking of the people that are here for us and stuff, I actually want to go ahead and shout out to a few people in the chat. We got all sorts of people in here, and I've been like not talking to them. I mean, we got Black Star, we got First Films, we got Liberty Bell. We got Mandible Smasher. Mandible Smasher's always here. He's a big fan of ours, and we love him. I mean, thank you so much for all you do. Let's see who else we got here. We got our Argelinian. I'm terrible with names.
Aragalenian.
Galenian. All right. Aragalenian.
R is a big. He's almost like an alternate historian at this point. He's just one of the best people that we've got as readers at Alterna, and he's got books that I don't even have anymore.
I mean, he's fantastic. He's always saying hi to me in the chat. Hi, he's a good guy, and we really appreciate him for being here. We got I Borrow Ideas. Hey, the best ideas actually are not original. They come from reinterpreting old ideas. So, hey, you're a good one. I Borrow Ideas. Don't worry about that. We got, of course, Sweetcast. He's in here. Thanks a lot for joining us, Clint. We got Edwin sign up for the ACE mailing list. Acevedo, I appreciate you for being here. Who else we got here? All right. I think that I said enough I think I got everybody. I always try and like say hello to everybody, but I start talking. Oh, we also got Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk's like, hey, I'm here too. Okay, Shadowhawk, I see you. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here. Okay, so let me get a drink of water. I'm about to lose my voice. So the weather's nice outside. We're enjoying ourselves. We're talking about comics. We're just having a good old time, doing this thing that we love. You were talking about your wife. You wake up every morning. You get ready for work. You kiss your wife. You go off to do your job. Exactly what does your day look like? I know what your 1 o'clock time looks like because you're here with me at 1 o'clock. But tell everybody what it takes to be a publisher. If they're thinking, hey, I want to be a publisher. I want to create like a Wizard magazine or something like that. I know that's something that you were interested in. What does it take to actually be a publishing Pete? What does that take?
For me personally, a lot of coffee and not a lot of sleep. So usually my day will start, if I'm lucky, around 9 to 9:30, but usually it's around 10. And that's because I don't really sleep until like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't usually stop working till maybe 2:30, and then the rest of that is just kind of the rest of the night. You go in the shower, you have a good cry. And you get out of the shower and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to just sit real still till I hopefully can fall asleep and my mind will stop racing. So that's usually around 4:30, 5 o'clock. And then I'm like, all right, time to go to bed. And then you wake up and you start the day at like 10. So usually when I start my day off, what happens is that I go right to the computer. I answer emails, as many as I can, because we get hundreds upon hundreds of emails a week. So usually if I can have less than 50 in an inbox, I'm like, that's amazing. So that'll be a great day for me if I wake up and I actually manage to answer a bunch. Other than that, it's getting orders ready. It's prepping the things that I have to do for the day, whether it's promoting, whether it's social media prep, whether it's getting books ready and files ready, whether it's listing things on the site store, or coming up with different newsletters and different programs that we do, or even just kind of doing outreach and engaging with the readers, or trying to get new readers interested, or sending an email to stores or anything like that. So there's all these various things. A lot of it's just kind of communication type work. Other than that, in terms of comic creating, I don't do as much of that anymore because publishing just eats up so much time. Yeah. But I don't really miss it that much either, because I feel like I'm still creating by being able to be very active with the creators that we have. And we have so many of them. So it's not even like I sit there thinking, man, I wish I could just work on my own stories instead of helping these guys out. I think if you're someone who you feel that way, if you end up saying, I wish I could just do my own stuff and not someone else's work, or help them with whatever. And that could be anything. That could be you're a letterer or an inker or an artist or whatever. If you feel like your heart's not in doing that, pursue making your own. Don't feel like, oh, I have to do this way, though. I have to actually, just kind of do all these things I don't want to do before I start to do the things I want to do. Start doing some of the things you want to do, even if it's just a little bit at a time. Again, life is too short. So that's usually my average day. And then, I end up working, like I said, till like 2 or so in the morning usually. And then the next day is the next day. It's kind of over and over again. I usually work around maybe I'd say 90 to 100 hours a week if I'm lucky.
Oh man, that's a lot of hours, and I hope you're being well compensated for that. Because one thing I realized when I was younger, I worked my butt off for companies. I mean, I worked like I'd take stuff home and work on it, and I wasn't even getting paid, and stuff like that.
It's different though too when you're working for yourself. It really is, because you do have to put in a lot of that time and effort. A lot of the things at Alterna that get done, it's only if I'm going to do them. If I don't do them, they're literally not going to get done. So. Yeah. It's a lot of that kind of thing. But at the same time, again, I really don't know what else I would do. I've tried working for other companies and doing graphic design jobs or web design or this and that. And I worked less hours, and in some cases, sometimes it'd be better pay. But I didn't like it. I really didn't like it.
I got to tell you, man, like I worked for a lot of companies, working my butt off, like I was just saying, and something hit me. And I'll tell you when it did. I was working for Todd McFarlane. This was 2009. The economy just went to crap, at that time. It wasn't too good.
Yeah.
And he laid off a lot of people. And I was working my butt off. And I saw that there was a little, the work was starting to get a little thin at work. So I was like taking on as much work as I could because I wanted to show that I had worth to keep around just in case this did happen. A lot of other people, they're like, oh, okay, ain't got any work. I'm just going to sit here. But what I found out is there's many levels to management, right? And whatever is happening at your manager level right above you, whatever that manager knows you're doing, no one above him knows anything about any of that type of stuff, man. I'm sitting here like killing it, like just beating my brains, just working as hard as possible. And then I got laid off. And I was like, well, my department alone that I was in, I was handling, I counted it up. I was handling 85% of the workload, and there was 4 of us, okay? And I figured, like, because I was doing this, they would keep me and get rid of everybody else. But the upper management didn't know what was going on, so they didn't care. They just like, everyone's gone, So I realized then it doesn't matter how much time and energy you put in to working for someone else, they will never cherish it as much as you do yourself. So if you ever want to get something out of your hard work, you got to work for yourself. Go out there and work for yourself. Do it for yourself. It doesn't matter. Just go work your butt off and do it, whatever it is, for yourself.
No, and I try to pass that on all the time to the creators at Alterna as well, saying that, okay, Alterna is creator owned. It truly is creator owned. So it's all about you being also the brand for your own work. Don't just rely on me or the Alterna logo or whatever it is to sell your work. Because if you do that, let's say it's very successful and you never really actually put that time to be the face of the thing you're creating. Well, now when you go on to your next thing, because there's always going to be something else, you don't necessarily carry over those people with you because they never got to know you. They never got to become invested in you, the creator. They like the work, but the work to them is an Alterna property, even though Alterna doesn't own it. So it's always important to me to stress exactly the things that I do to them as well, which is to say, no, be the face of your brand, be the face of your book. I want them to know and trust Alterna as a publisher, but I want them to also understand and know who the creators are and what they're doing and the fact that they love and care about the work that they're making too. And if anything, we all work together like that and we succeed even more than just one person kind of pulling their weight. But that's the best thing to me, is to see a lot of creators actually building up their own brand, their own ethos, their own work ethic, being entrepreneurial about it, as opposed to just saying, well, I just want to really make comics. I don't really want to have to do the other kind of thing. Yeah. Well, you could do that, but at the same time, you're going to find one day you're going to look back and go, man, I really wish that I built up my presence, my own brand, my own kind of fan base, because if you don't, you're just kind of playing into the system of making someone else rich and someone else popular and successful. And then when you leave, you're going to be surprised you don't take that with you. So make sure you build up your own presence too. It has nothing to do with shirking responsibilities or anything like that for a publisher, because they should absolutely be doing just the same as well and building up their brand and your book and letting people know. But you have to let people know about the work you're doing. You have to let them know about you.
Well, to piggyback off of that, you know, I mean, you're here, you're Alterna, you are Publishing Pete. But the thing that I always liked about watching your channel is that you would always have the creators from all the other books, you know, coming on your show and stuff like that on Alterna Comics. You know, and I was just like, dude, this is awesome. If someone wanted to get a jump start and kind of helping themselves promote their own book, what a great place to be at Alterna Comics, because you could actually get your book in there, start doing your thing, and you could also be promoting yourself, you know, on your website, on your Twitter, on whatever. But at the same time, the publisher himself has his own platform that you could piggyback off of to help yourself. And I was just like, wow, you know, how cool would that be if, say, like Image Comics had something like that? Okay, like I worked for Todd McFarlane. I know, you know, he's got a huge platform. He does his little thing, but he's also, what is he, the president of Image Comics? You don't never see him bringing in all the other creators at Image Comics onto his platform to help promote them. I mean, I've never seen it. I watch his stuff all the time, and I'm a huge fan of Todd, nicest guy in the world. But they don't do that, right?
Yeah, it's a different approach. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, Marvel Comics doesn't do that. DC doesn't do that. But with you, Alterna, you know, I was like, dude, this is great. This is a guy who loves what he's doing, and he's helping all the creators underneath, because usually whoever the publisher is, they want to be the center eye of the company, and no one else can come in and sweep in, you know, around them. And I mean, that is just fantastic that you allow that for people.
I honestly think that's from me, I think, learning from really appreciating the work of Stan Lee when I was growing up. And so for people who either love or hate Stan Lee, the conversation, we could talk about different point of views all day long. I love Stan. He's one of my heroes in terms of comics and everything else too. But one of the biggest things when I was reading comics is the fact that Stan made all the creators known. He had nicknames, he had the bullpen, he had all that different kinds of stuff that made it feel like, oh yeah, you're aware of all the people that are doing these great things. Whereas at other comic companies, it didn't feel as personable. It didn't feel like you were part of the in crowd, you know. But he had an atmosphere there where you did feel that way, whether or not it was true or false or whatever. For the readers felt that way. And then he had different things with interviews and other kinds of shows too later on, where he would be with. It's kind of funny because there's this thing called the Comic Book Greats, where Stan would interview different creators.
Yeah, those were awesome.
That just reminds me a lot of like what we see a lot of comic creators do nowadays. You know, he was doing that with them. So to see that kind of a thing, you know, it's just kind of, to me, it's if I could just carry not the torch, but a little bit of an ember of what he was doing. I feel like, okay, I'm kind of doing what I can do, what my part is. And that's part of it. I feel it's like that. We've got the modernization of that bullpen feel, of that personability, that relatability for the creators, the readers. They're not over there and we're over here. We're all in the same room together, talking and mingling among each other. I like that atmosphere. I like that mindset. And I think that's what we have at Alterna.
Well, you know, Disney did the same thing. That if you know, on Disney Plus, they have these all these old backlogs of Disney programs, you know, from like the 40s and 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And they have this thing that was like Walt Disney Presents or something like that. But basically, he had this show where it was like he went into the creative place and he was like, hey, this is so-and-so. He's an illustrator here at Disney and he works on this. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And it was that same thing. You know, Walt Disney was doing that. Walt Disney didn't have to do that, but he loved it, you know. And then when Walt Disney died, who was that person to keep doing that sort of thing? There wasn't anybody. When Disney bought Marvel Comics, it was like a gold mine that they had Stan Lee to prop up there to keep it going, to say, hey, oh, hey, fans and heroes and super villain, hey, you know, we got you here and stuff. And now that Stan's dead, who do they have to carry on that mantle at Marvel Comics? I haven't seen anybody. I mean, who's the figurehead now? You know, who's the person they're trotting out to bump up all the stuff? You know, I mean, it's like,
in some ways it's still Stan, you know, which is morbid.
Well,
but, with his Twitter account and things like that, various posts that I've seen that I'm like, what is going on here? But
yeah.
but not to go down that conversation, but yeah, it's true though that where are those kinds of people to be the bridge that connects, to be ambassadors, to be people that actually go out there and connect directly with the readers? I think if anything, we see way too much nowadays of yeah, they're out there, but they're not doing the bridge building and the ambassadorship kind of stuff that Stan did so great. They're kind of more like tearing things down as opposed to building things up, and it's so unfortunate. But I mean, the other part of that though is the more that they do that, the more that corporate comics do that, the more indies build up. And we become the ambassadors. We say, you know what, we're going to pick up the baton and we're going to continue the race. And I think that all of us, every single indie creator that's doing their thing, making their book, reaching out to readers, getting more readers interested in comics, you don't have to be a big corporate entity or a superstar or a celebrity or whatever to make an impact and to get new readers into comics. You just have to be someone that cares about comics and enjoys making them and wants to share them with the world. And I like to see all the indie creators out there that are doing that. I like to see that happen, and they are doing, which is great. Okay,
well, talking about creating comics, give someone just a quickie as to how they could actually make comics for Alterna Comics. I mean, let's go beyond, though, just understanding that you got to read instructions and follow instructions in order to get your book published. Let people know how they can do it.
Yeah, so our submissions are open all the time, 24/7, 365. So you can go to alternacomics.com and submit your comic whenever you'd like. But because of that, that's why don't rush it either. Make sure you read the guidelines. Make sure that you are comfortable with creating comics, that you feel like you're making the best thing you can make. Oftentimes, I mean, it's difficult to say when someone is ready for this kind of a thing. But the thing is, if you can look at least and remain objectively when you do so, look at the comics that you love, look at the comics that Alterna publishes, and then really give a comparison and go, does this feel like it is along the same standard of quality? Because at the same time, if you don't have the editing eye to understand when something is of a certain level of quality and when something isn't, it's going to be a very difficult life for you as a creative person. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. It doesn't mean you're not going to improve. You will definitely improve. But you need to take the time and be realistic with your expectations. So this way you can actually go in there and say, okay, I think I'm ready. I feel like I'm just right there. Let me just test the waters and see, what Pete or any other publisher would think of this. And hopefully you get some kind of a critique back, and be open to the critique too. Because sometimes back in the day, I used to give critiques with every single submission rejection and say, okay, this is what you did great. This is what you could improve upon. This is what I'd like to see. Maybe give a different shot at this and send in a revision. And over the years of that, I got multiple death threats because of it. So I kind of stopped.
Yeah.
Said, you know what? Not worth my time. I'm trying to help you out.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the door open for you, and you're telling me what to go do with myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. So now if someone does really ask, though, and I do have the time, because that's the thing that's unfortunate. Back then I had the time. Now I don't have as much of the time. So if I do have the time and someone is open to it, and hold on a second, we got a big cloud that moved in. I'm disappearing into the darkness. Okay, even though the window's open and it's relatively sunny out. So it must have been my mood shifting, thinking of all the times.
I know you're thinking of all those people trying to do you in and do harm. When you were actually trying to help them, you were saying, hey, if you do this and you resubmit it, you actually might be able to be published here. You're evil. Stop.
So now what I do instead, if a submission is right there, or if it just needs a couple small tweaks, then I'll say something. Otherwise, I don't want to impose too much. I don't want to give people any kind of harsh feedback or criticism or anything, because over the years, I just found it just fell on deaf ears.
Yeah.
So at this point, if someone is interested in actually receiving a critique to improve, and as long as I have the time, I'll do so. But it's difficult sometimes, because some people, they will ask, they'll have a good attitude behind it. But at the same time, there's so many different things to correct. I could tell that they're just starting out. It's more just like, look, keep creating, keep learning how to create comics, keep learning how to draw, how to write, really study the comics that you love and that you're a fan of, and then take that philosophy into making your own comic, because there's nothing at this point that I can critique and say, oh, if you just improve that or improve this, you'd be there. It's kind of like saying someone is just starting out at any kind of anything and saying, you know, well, how do you get to a level of someone who's been doing this for 10 or 15 years? Well, the thing is, you have to put 10 or 15 years into it.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's like, put that time in and then we'll talk and you'll be where you need to be. I guarantee it. So that's usually what it is.
We got a question right down below. Verse Films production. What about horror comics? Does Alterna have a section strictly for each genre? How do they advertise them?
So yeah, we have a bunch of horror comics. I find that we actually have more sci-fi though. So does Alterna have a section strictly for each genre? In a way, yeah, we do. You can actually go on to, like, let's say alternaaccess.com. Things can get separated by genre, age, rating, things like that. So this way, if you just go into it and you've never heard of Alterna before, or hopefully you heard of us a little bit, and you go, I don't know necessarily what they publish, but I know the kind of stories I like. So you can go in there, you can click on sci-fi, horror, whatever it is, and then you can see the listings that pop up. Other than that, I mean, in terms of advertising, we do a lot of social media. Being on something like this right now is a form of advertising and promotion. In terms of actually taking out ads and doing things, you know, like putting ads in a magazine or something like that, or in the newspaper, we've rarely done anything like that in the past. We'll do social media ads every now and then, like YouTube or Facebook, but even then, it's not very consistent. I found that the direct engagement with your own, either a newsletter or social media or YouTube's been just a complete revolution in terms of it's been a game changer for us in terms of how to interact with people. Those have been great. But in terms of just, you put the ad out into the world, the thing is, everyone already knows it's an ad. You can only do so much. So yeah, most people nowadays have begun just ignoring those ads and just white noise, and you just don't pay attention anymore. So being more interactive and genuine, looking to share as opposed to sell. Because if they're interested in it, the next question is, oh, how do I get it? Where do I get it? So you don't have to necessarily lead with the sale. And I find a lot of people do that.
Well, how about product placement? Have you ever been, you know, has anyone come to you from the entertainment industry to use some of your books as product placement?
Yeah, we've had some of that before, but even then, that's the kind of thing that maybe later on it'll just be something fun that people see when they come across it. But at the same time, we've never really had any kind of, you know, oh, hey, I saw that here, and you know, like we had on an episode of Elementary, there were a bunch of Alterna books in the background at a museum, covers and things like that.
Yeah.
And some people noticed it, but most people didn't, you know, so that was kind of funny that you could get your stuff on a show, but of course it doesn't really mean much of anything, because most people that are probably watching think like, oh, they must have just created that for that scene. You know, they're not actually going to pursue trying to find, oh, well, what was that image in the corner of the background? And, you know, so it's just things later on, if you're aware, like Alterna fans, they were aware. So some of us said, hey, I saw what looked like one of your books. Is that true? Was that on there? But other than that, it didn't really go towards like getting us sales or any recognition about anything. And that was fine. It was just fun to be on the show.
Yeah. And also people got to realize that you got to get to some sort of stress point before it actually, people start to take notice of it. If it's just here and there a little bit, it's more Easter eggs than it is actually advertisement. And it has to be in front of your face constantly for you to actually pay attention consciously, not subconsciously.
Yeah, it's something like you have to be told and shown at least 3 times, and then it starts to stick into your mind. And the whole thing, too, is a lot of people don't realize this, but maybe they do. any kind of advertisement or commercial or whatever it is, it's not necessarily always just this call to action to just go purchase this thing right now. It's more about saying, look, now it's familiar to you. You've heard of it. So hopefully now when you're just along, doing your thing in day-to-day life, or you're thinking of like, what was that, that stuck in my head, I got to go check that out. It's more about that. It's not necessarily about saying like, you see the commercial, now you got to go immediately and go purchase the thing you just saw. That's very rare that's the point of advertising or promotion. It's more about familiarity.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Alterna Comics recently, they broke from Diamond, and I can understand why, because I mean, they weren't shipping comics, so why would you deal with a comic shipper that doesn't ship comics, But how has Alterna Comics been doing since your break from Diamond distributor?
It's been great, honestly. Our numbers for readers have been up 20%.
That's huge.
Yeah, which is I didn't know necessarily what to make of it. All I knew was that we had everything in place to sell direct to readers and retailers. We were already doing so. We already were having success too. So for the past year, our sales direct were better than our sales through Diamond. So I thought, well, even though it's nice that we have that Diamond chunk there as well, I know we could still continue to do this, and hopefully the sales that we lose through Diamond, hopefully some of those will recuperate direct. So it wasn't like any kind of, it wasn't a feeling of certainty necessarily in terms of we'd have success. It was more just, I knew that if we stuck with what we had, we would have to really start doing a halt on production. We would have to sit there and, ride it out. We were being told that for at least 3 months, we would have to just ride it out, maybe longer. Yeah. Those things, it wasn't acceptable to me to tell everybody just, okay, stop, and then we'll get restarted and this kind of a thing. I felt like we have to just keep going, because even if we don't put out, even if our production schedule was still delayed 3 months, it would be delayed even more if I had to tell people to stop and then start in 3 months. Yeah. So it just, no, let's keep on doing it, because if we stick in this system, we're done. This year, that's it for us. We're not going to survive. So being able to actually leave that system and take things into our own hands and still create books and still get things out, even though there's a bit of a delay in production and in shipping books out, we're still in a better position, a much better position than we would have been if we stayed. And then to see that we actually gained 20% extra in terms of our readership was even better. So I'm just grateful that people are still supporting us and that they've stood by us this whole time.
So is this the future of distributing comics? Do you think not going through a distributor and just doing it as a company for yourself? I mean, is it online?
I think for some people, maybe it will be, yeah, because I think a lot of publishers, they need to understand that the distribution system is not necessarily, it shouldn't be just your one point of sale. I think a lot of publishers do realize that. They sell through conventions, they sell here and there. Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to have to see a lot more people kind of shift their focus and start their own distribution department, or have exactly what Alterna has with Alterna Access, where we have a full and comprehensive store that you can purchase direct from us. And then you can also purchase, the retailers can purchase direct from us too. So I think a lot of people are going to have to focus that way. I think crowdfunding has been fantastic. We're going to be utilizing that more. A lot of people, I think, already are doing a great job of that. So it's going to be interesting to see where the comic industry goes. I don't think comics at all are in danger. There's always going to be comics. I think the comic industry as we know it is definitely in danger, especially if we still have a distributor who basically is like, we don't really have to change too much. Let's just keep doing what we've been doing. No, you absolutely have to change. When Alterna got distribution with Diamond in 2008, about 4,000 stores were regularly selling comics, and they were Diamond accounts. Now it's about 1,900. So that's not growth. Yeah. That's not growth in any stretch of the imagination. There's more comics than ever before, less places to sell them in. I've said this ad nauseum at this point. Many people have. So we have to get comics in front of more people. So we don't have the spinner racks of the 70s and 80s and things like that,
Yeah. It's a shame.
We don't have the newsstands and the convenience stores and things like that the way they were.
Yeah.
But we have the internet. They didn't have the internet. So if you can utilize this new way of getting new people on board, getting them interested, reaching out, being the person that doesn't just doesn't just kind of passively market, but being active with your marketing and engaging people directly, then you'll have success. But if you're someone who, because it is very passive to just say, well, it's in the store, someone will find it. You can't do that in this day and age. There's too many things out there. It's not just comics, but and the industry acknowledged it. That's what's kind of funny, that they acknowledged the fact that, well, video games were coming in, they were taking up people's time, especially young people. But instead of saying, let's compete, let's work in tandem with these industries, because how awesome is it to read the adventures of your favorite hero and then play the video game, which is what I loved as a kid. Yeah. I don't know when they decided to abandon that, as if the kids would stop reading the comics and would just play the game. But largely they did abandon that strategy. So there was no synergy. But then the movies come out, and then it became this weird thing too. Nice synergy in the beginning, and then it just completely fell apart. So we should have had this golden age again of comics being everywhere, creators making a better living than ever before. And instead it was the opposite.
Yeah, to just kind of hit on that for a second. Years ago, when I was really into comic books reading, late 80s, early 90s, and I noticed that the artwork in the comic books tended to be a lot better, obviously, than what you got in the video games. The early 90s video games, they looked pixelated. They were just terrible, right? And also the movies, when they first started coming out, it was still kind of, I don't know, felt kind of cheesy. I wasn't quite getting it, and to me, the best representation of the characters was in the comic books. Today, I mean, the movies are fantastic. The video games look amazing, although I don't play any of the video games, but when I see them, they look fantastic. I mean, maybe, do you think we've gotten to that point to where those avenues of expression have just gotten so much better that people prefer those avenues of expression?
I think it offers them another avenue. I don't necessarily think it replaces. And I think that too often in this industry and other industries too, they don't view it as, oh, this enhances this thing. They view it as, oh, this replaces this thing. Even when digital comics came out, it was like, oh, that's it. Print is dead. No one's going to buy print comics anymore. Yeah. What? It's still just like 10% of sales of the overall industry.
The same thing was done when digital music came out. People were like, oh, no one's going to buy CDs or records or anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why would I buy a digital album for $10 when I can buy the CD for $12 and then make my own digital copy and then take the physical one and sell it for $8 and get my money back? That's kind of where I was. I was like, you need that physical thing that you can invest your money into,
Yeah. And with comics too, it's a completely different system in terms of print and digital. So I've seen comics be compared to, and this is ironic because of the point I'm going to end up making, I've seen comics be compared to newspapers and magazines and other form of print media that are suffering. Usually the reason why those print medias are suffering is because they're reporting news and different things that as soon as it's printed, because of the internet,
obsolete.
It's old. It's obsolete. Doesn't matter anymore. And usually it's because also these places are actually putting these articles already on the internet. So they're kind of killing themselves in the terms of their print industry.
Well, here's another thing that people don't know about newspapers so much. The newspaper didn't exist just off the sale of the newspaper anyway, if it wasn't for all the ads. You take any newspaper, it's like 60-70% ads, and all the rest is the news that's left fit to print. Okay, so if it wasn't for all that advertising money, newspapers would have died years ago, decades ago. So there you go.
Yeah, it's true. And that's what's odd about it, is because those things are so topical that, well, when comics are compared, I'm thinking, well, comics, you can read whatever for years and years. The shelf life isn't just today. But that's what's so funny now, is that a lot of these comics, they're kind of so topical and so trendy that the material is relatively obsolete. It's only really this flash in the pan kind of thing. The stories aren't necessarily meant to appeal to everyone for a long period of time. Yeah. So it's weird to see them want to follow the exact reason that it's killing both magazine and newspapers. And then even with the ads, like you just said, comics used to have great ads, tons of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't really do that as much anymore.
I want my sea monkeys. Where's my sea monkeys, man?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing too, you know, that would help lower the cost of the cover price, because even we sell ads. So you could get like a quarter-page ad in Alterna for like $25. You could get a full page for like $100. You could get the back cover. I think it's still $200 that we have it for. So
awesome.
That's like, and for most of these companies, I mean, if you do a quarter-page ad, it's probably like $300 to $400. So it's that kind of a thing where at Alterna, we're even keeping that relatively affordable. So if an indie creator wants to advertise their book in an Alterna book and actually go right directly to the comic readers, especially now where every single book that sells through Alterna is going to a reader, it's not just going to sit on a shelf either. Very, you know, with a small exception of the retailers that order from us, most of the books, I'd say 80 to 90% of the books go right to the reader. So someone can actually advertise and it goes right to someone, as opposed to, well, you know, maybe our print run is 5,000, but you know, 4,000 of those are just going to sit on the shelf, and who knows who's reading them or if they ever get opened up. Now, you know, instead, you know, maybe we're selling 1,000 or 2,000, but they're going right to people.
Nice. That's just fantastic. Well, usually we like to keep this at about an hour. We've gone over about 10 minutes, but let me just give you one last chance to go out there and tell people why they need to support this Indiegogo campaign, man.
Yeah, so you guys definitely need to go check out Alterna Comics because you demanded it, because not only did the readers demand it, whether or not you realize it, you probably demanded it too. This is something that you didn't know you needed in your life, and now here it is. So go check it out. We've got a lot of great books on here. The Fully Loaded Collector Case has been easily our most popular tier. But if you want to get into Alterna for the first time, we've got the reprint bundle, which is easily the best value as well. $30 at this point now, you get 29 comics. We're going to unlock the 30th very soon. And then if we get to 25,000 on the campaign, which we're just about, I think, $2,700 away from. If we get to that point before the campaign closes, we're going to extend another 30 days, and we're going to have more unlockable bonus issues on there. So if you have the reprint bundle or the Fully Loaded Collector Case or the All Comics bundle, you're going to get a whole bunch of comics added on, and you might not even be aware of it. You're just going to get a whole bunch of extra comics and probably think we did something wrong, but it's part of it. You're supposed to get all these comics. So you're going to find a whole lot of different things at Alterna. We've got books that are not only obviously for adults, but also books that are great for kids, books that are great for teenagers, that they're appropriate for those ages, but they're not necessarily made for them. So our all ages books are truly for readers of all ages. They're kind of like the comics that we grew up with, that you could read them and be 8 years old or be 20, 30, 40 years old and still enjoy the story. And that's been great too. We have a lot of parents that love these books, and the kids love their books too. So they read them together, which has been an awesome experience to see. But so we've got all kinds of different things: horror, sci-fi, superhero, action, adventure, drama, crime, all that kind of stuff. We have that at Alterna. So there's something for everyone. So go check this out if you haven't already. And if you have and you've supported, thank you guys for doing so. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Also tell them where they can get you online too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go to alternacomics.com, or you can visit our site store at alternaaccess.com, and make sure to say hello to me on the cesspool known as Twitter at Peter Simeti.
Oh, you're too kind, man. All right, you guys, man, we really do appreciate it. I mean, Pete, this is just awesome publishing, Pete. We love you. You know that. We love being on your show. We loved having you here. Hopefully we can have you back again. We'll get you on Karshina's show, and maybe we'll do a little bit more once you've rested up after this, because you only got, how many days is left? 8 days left on your campaign.
Yeah, we've got 8 days to go. So I'm fully confident that we're going to reach that 25,000. So I'm going to be having another 30 days to go, which I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I guess we'll see in 38 days.
Hey, man, just let it ride, man. That's all there is to it. Just let it ride. And everyone, if you want, go ahead and go over to Skits over on Indiegogo. Check out Skits FUN Book 1. It's on. We've had it in the chat. It's in the description. It's right there for you. Remember, we're the only company that's got 3 books, 3 variant covers, 3 variant stories, all nicely wrapped and assigned and numbered, Skits band on the outside specifically for you. I mean, this is just love incarnate. So go over there and check that out. Again, Pete, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. And yeah, everybody go check out Skits. This is a book I'm really looking forward to. So you know, when you get done with that thing, gotten a reader that's anxiously awaiting, and that's me.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That is too kind. Coming from a publisher, he's interested in my book. Look at that. Oh, that's awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Oh.